Now, the Department of Home Affairs has confirmed its plans to introduce a new draft marriage policy in South Africa, but it says the process was delayed as a result of the coronavirus. The new Marriage Act will enable South Africans of different sexual orientation, religions and cultural persuasions to conclude legal marriages. It will allow for equitable treatment and respect for religious and customary beliefs in line with Section 15 of the Constitution. Now, to explore this even further, I'm joined by JOSEPHINE from the Office of the Family Advocate Chief to speak about this draft marriage policy. A very good morning to you, Josephine. Thank you for your time. Let's talk about the biggest motivation for you for this introduction of a new draft marriage policy in South Africa. Why was it so necessary to make some of these changes?
A very good morning to you, Nico, and to the listeners as well, or the viewers. The biggest motivation was based on the fact that there is a fragmentation within the marriage regime, or the laws that are actually governing the marriages in South Africa. And I'm going to unpack this as follows. If you look at the marriages in South Africa, they are basically governed by three pieces of legislation. Number one is the Civil Marriages Act. And if you look at the Civil Marriages Act, it's a bit problematic because it is basically for monogamous marriages of parties who are in an opposite sex relationship. So that basically means that if you want to take a second spouse, then you cannot go in terms of the Civil Marriages Act. Secondly, if you are a partner in a same-sex relationship, you then cannot even enjoy the benefits which are afforded by the Civil Marriages Act of 1961. Secondly, the other piece of legislation is the Civil Unions Act of 2006. Now, it is also problematic because, in actual fact, it does not even use the phenomenon or the concept of marriage. However, it uses the concept of partnership, meaning that when you have solemnized your union, it is not even referred to as a marriage, it is referred to as a partnership. And the last one is the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act, which is an act of 1998, which basically recognizes polygamy, but only within the African customary culture or practices or tenets. However, the biggest issue is that when you look at those particular legislations, it does not take into consideration the social dynamics that we are currently experiencing. For instance, a lot of people now are into cohabitation, setups or partnership, and those cohabitation partnerships, they have unintended legal consequences. Now, you can imagine that for a person who has been married, who has been staying with a partner for 20 years, they do not have any legal coverage, sort of. Secondly, the other disadvantage is that those pieces of legislation do not cover the marriages which are entered into in terms of the cultural or religious beliefs and laws, like your Jewish marriages, the Hindu and the Muslim marriages. So in my personal opinion, I feel that it is high time that as South Africa, we need to move towards an all-inclusive marriage regime that will be based on constitutional values such as human dignity, equality, and non-discrimination. And I've just highlighted those issues which I have all times, have had difficulties with them because of such issues.
Now, once this new Marriage Act comes into force, how will religious organizations be made to comply?
What I've picked up is that it would have addressed the issue of non-discrimination. People are no longer going to be discriminated based on their sexual orientation, and you know that this is one of the thorny issues, especially in the in the churches. But now should the act now be implemented, now the marriage officers will then have to take forward and then move forward in terms of implementing that, because failure for them to actually do so will render their action unconstitutional and invalid to an extent that they'll be discriminating against people or parties based on their sexual orientation.
So as we speak about the religious aspect, what would the consequences be if religious organizations refuse to officiate same-sex marriages? Could we see this even being a matter which escalates to the courts even?
I'm actually, I'm loving actually the South African legal system, especially when you look at Section 34 of the Constitution. It basically calls upon people to, take whatever legal dispute they have, before the court for adjudication. Now, I am preempting that should the religious organization then have a particular problem, with solemnizing marriages, especially because of the fact that it will be bringing forward, the issue of non-discrimination, then one will then have to approach the court. They can approach the court on the basis of Section 9 of the Constitution, to go and lodge an application to say they are being discriminated, they are not being treated equally like any other ordinary, person. And that will attract the following consequences. For instance, the court may go to an extent of actually compelling the religious organization to actually give effect to the legislation should it be implemented.
Now, you've spoken a little bit about the social dynamics that we're currently facing, speaking about how partners who are not married stay together for decades and have no legal backing. How do you think now that this new marriage law will be received by people who, don't understand it and perhaps don't understand the legal merits or the legal basis that a partner would have without being officially married?
For me, Nico, I am already anticipating various schools of thought around, like the prospective implementation of the marriage. For instance, you may have parties that may say, the reason why I'm not getting married is simply because I do not want the law to apply to me. You see, and then you may get parties who are saying, you know what, the other partner is actually not wanting to go down the aisle, and they're feeling that we are okay this way, but I'm feeling that I may be prejudiced should they depart. You see what I mean? So I'm thinking that it's going to be received, like it will depend on where a person will be standing at the time. But I can assure you now that through the research that I have personally conducted, I see that marriage is no longer a norm as such, and I'm seeing, because I'm looking at the types of complaints that I'm handling on a daily basis. I get about 200 WhatsApps a week where people are wanting to find out as to what proprietary consequences can they actually get when they've been staying with a partner for a particular period and they've never signed. And the consequences are actually very sad. You find that you've been staying with a person and then nothing is actually happening, and then they pass away, and then their family just fall down on you like a tons of bricks, and then they are removing the assets and everything, and you're left destitute. But I've also picked up a recent judgment in the Western Cape, but it's still subject to a confirmation by the Constitutional Court, where a partner was actually allowed to actually inherit the estate of their deceased partner who died intestate, meaning that the deceased partner died without a will, and they were actually allowed to also benefit. And then again, also parallel to that, and that is a fragmentation that I alluded to in my opening statement, that if you look parallel to that, you see many legislation like the Pension Fund Administration Act, which is also going to benefit partners who are not even married, but they will benefit by virtue of the fact that they were the financial dependent of the deceased person. So I think that's the reason why I'm saying that I think we need to deal with the fragmentation so that we can bring things together. And I've also picked up that one of the issues that the proposed legislation is going to address is the issue of aligning the concept of proprietary consequences with the Constitution, and I'm very happy about that. Because for me, I feel that now we are really going to be now enjoying the freedom to choose whether I want to get married or I want to just enjoy my life partnership with my partner.
Thank you so much for your time. Josephine PETA from the Office of the Family Advocate Chief, talking to us there about the new draft marriage policy that the Department of Home Affairs is looking at introducing, the powers of that act.